Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Two Moms and Some Labels. Two Moms and Some Labels is a platform for parents and caregivers caring for a child or an adult with a disability to come together in a shared space to network, communicate, just gain and share ideas on how to persevere through challenging times. My name is Brittany, and today I have a wonderful guest that is going to talk all about their business. That, I mean, every time I log on to social media, I'm always seeing families say, where can I go for ABA? I'm looking for ABA. I need ABA services. I need a clinic. Does anyone have any recommendations? So every time I log on, I see this all the time. So it seems like it's, a constant, issue in our community that we can't find an ABA clinic, especially some place that is going to be reliable and trustworthy for our children, because that's very important because a lot of our children may be nonverbal. So letting go and letting them go into a new environment and facility can be very scary. And so we want to make sure that the places that we choose are trustworthy and safe for our children. So I am bringing to you all today a resource, a facility, a place for you to be able to bring your children if you are looking for an ABA clinic. You ask, and I shall bring you what you need. So I am going to let our guest go ahead and introduce herself.
Hi, my name is Marlee Crawford. I am the founder of Missing Piece Behavioral Solutions. I am a board certified behavior analyst, and I opened a clinic on the west side of Jacksonville to help serve families in this area and surrounding areas, exactly for the reason of what Ms. Brittany just said, to be a resource to the community to ensure that, families feel safe and have reliable ABA services. So I am super excited to be here today with you all.
Awesome, awesome. So yes, we are so happy to have Miss Marlee here with us. So let's dive into a little bit about, your background, how we got
Yeah.
here, how Missing Piece Behavioral Solutions even formed. So, what made you get into this field?
Yeah. So long story short, my parents wanted me to be a pharmacist. That was like their goal for me, a pharmacist or a doctor. And in high school, of course, you have to do your volunteer hours. So I did some volunteering at a hospital, and I was like, I don't think that's quite the setting for me. And I had an aunt who worked with a very prominent um, disability organization here in Jacksonville. And she was like, hey, do you want a summer job as an intern working at a special needs summer camp? And I was like, sure. I've always kind of liked working with children, but just to kind of see it in a different realm. So this was when I was maybe 12, 13, like very, very young. So I ended up working at this special needs summer camp, and I absolutely fell in love. And the director of the summer camp happened to be a BCBA. Had no idea what ABA was or what a BCBA did. And she just kept saying, Marlee, I think you should, like, when you're transitioning into college, you should become a BCBA. And I was like, I don't know. I'm thinking speech, something of that nature. Fast forward, I worked there for almost 6 summers. Every year I would go back. Like, it was the highlight of my year. And I ended up going to Florida State University, and I received my bachelor's in communication science and disorders. Originally, I was going for speech. I was trying to get away from the behavior bug, as we like to call it. And while I was at FSU for speech, I worked as a after-school counselor at a special needs private school. And I had maybe 12 kids in my after school class. And that can be a lot when it's just one person. And we allowed registered behavior technicians to come into our classrooms. So I was kind of sitting there. I'm like, I have 12 kids with, a wide variety of disabilities. And this person gets to work one-on-one and kind of get to figure out, and work on a variety of different skills. So fast forward, I decided to pursue my registered behavior technician certification and become an RBT to work in schools, in home, and in the community. And I loved it. In my bachelor's program, originally everyone was there for speech, and I became the lone wolf. I'm like, I'm halfway through this journey of becoming a speech therapist. Do I change? Do I go? Do I, keep going? So I did decide to keep going with that degree because a little bit of speech overlaps with a lot of behavior. So it really worked in my favor to continue to, pursue that degree. Um, at that point, I was like, nope, I'm going to become a BCBA. I loved everything about behavior, from, changing the behavior, teaching the skill of communication, interacting with families, interacting with other professions such as speech, OT, teachers, because it ultimately takes a village and a great team to progress our clients and our learners forward. So from there, a week after I graduated with my bachelor's degree, I started my master's degree to become a BCBA. Very ambitious, but the best decision I've made. So once I completed my master's degree, I was a board certified assistant behavior analyst for a little bit. And then I became a BCBA, or board certified behavior analyst, in 2020. During that time, I got to work with a variety of families. I actually moved up in the company that I was working with. I was a clinical director at a very young age. And I was like, okay, if I can do this for someone else, I can do this for myself. So in 2022, I decided that I was going to take that leap of faith and open my business, Missing Piece. Missing Piece actually was a vision that I held on to for a very long time. No matter what I decided to do, I did know I wanted to go in private practice, whether it was for speech and or for behavior. And believe it or not, on my graduation cap from Florida State, so when I was an RBT, I actually had "Be the Missing Piece" on my graduation cap. So that's where our slogan came from. Missing Piece Behavioral was just the name that I've kind of preyed on and stuck with, and it has truly transformed in the last 3 years. We started out as an in-home company, and then in 2022, we started as an in-home company. 2023, we opened a clinic, and we've been in our clinic ever since then. We're able to service a lot of early intervention clients. We do have some in-school clients that started with us as early intervention, and then they transitioned to a different environment to ensure their support with that new environment, making sure that transition is easy. We do have some therapists that do go in school to help with that. I have grew a Missing Piece from just myself. I started with one client, 1 hour a week, to an agency now that has almost 15 RBTs, 2 assistant behavior analysts, and an office manager. So we have grew really, really quick in a short amount of time, but it's ultimately to be a resource and to make sure that the families are getting the services that they deserve. I didn't want to create another company that was just going to be like a billing mill, right, where we're just servicing kids to service kids. My goal is to work ourselves out of a job, right? So the more progress our families make, our clients make, then we're able to fade ourselves out and then kind of help serve the next family that needs our support.
Awesome. Oh my goodness. Wow. Yes. You have had quite a journey. And,
Absolutely.
I always say, what is meant for you is going to be for you. And it's going to all fall in place. And it seems like everything fell in place the way that it was supposed to for you. And, like your name, those missing pieces, they came together, and, here you are now. I know I always say I try to run away from the special needs world. Like, I find myself trying to do a different career path or a different job. And then it's like something is pulling me back into this world. And I'm like, I just want to do something else. But
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
like, it's not letting me, the universe, God is not letting me be able to do something different. So this is the path that I'm meant to go on. And so I'm so glad that you were able to, find this path and be successful on it and do something that you really love. Um, So as far as your company goes, what age range do you serve inside of the clinic?
Yes. Yeah. So inside of the clinic, we go to age 8. We would love to service a larger age range. However, from a clinical perspective, I don't want to have an older client with our little kids, right? Typically, when we're looking at skill deficits and things that we need to work on and goals we need to work on, we typically don't want to have, our older learners who maybe have, functional living skills, and then our younger learners are maybe just learning how to communicate. We want to make sure that all of our learners have the same kind of demographic around them because it promotes more social growth. So right now at the clinic, we are serving ages 2 to 8, but maybe in the future, if we can get a bigger clinic space, we'll look at exploring increasing our ages there.
So, do you have many 2-year-olds? Because I know for a lot of parents that they're not able to really receive a diagnosis until maybe like 3 or 4. So, how has that been for that population of, age 2?
Yeah, so believe it or not, in the beginning, we had like 4 2-year-olds.
Wow.
We get a lot of calls for younger kiddos at this point, and I think it's because now some like developmental pediatricians and some psychologists are feeling a little bit more comfortable seeing the signs of autism and giving that diagnosis. I know some providers will wait until closer to age 3, but we've also worked with early steps to kind of get some of those early diagnoses as well to kind of help formulate that pipeline. But for our learners who have started as young as 2, research has shown that, the more intensive the services, typically, but the better the outcome, right? So our job as BCBAs and RBTs is not to change the person at all, but to definitely create those behavior patterns for more socially acceptable behaviors. So starting really, really young, we get a lot of kids that, come in and they have very limited skills, right? They may not be able to communicate their wants and needs. Maybe they are non-vocal, maybe they are nonverbal, but we're teaching them that ground foundation, whether it's pointing to get access, starting with sign language, maybe using a picture exchange system or a AAC device or like a little device for them to communicate. We really look at our younger learners and see what do these families need? What does this learner need in that moment? And how can we best, teach them in that moment and find out what works for them, because ABA isn't a one size fit all process, right? So the treatment plans look completely different for every single kid that we bring through our doors.
Yeah, definitely. And so, what is the criteria or the qualifications for a child to be able to attend Missing Piece?
Yeah, so we are at this point insurance funded. We do have a private pay option. So every insurance is a little bit different. So we are currently in network with Blue Cross Blue Shield, Aetna, Cigna, and TRICARE. So for our commercial or our private insurances, so your Aetnas, your Blue Cross, your Cignas, they typically require your diagnostic evaluation. I'm just stating that autism is present. Your insurance card, just to make sure that you have that ABA coverage there, and a referral. Some payers require us to have a referral, some do not. TRICARE is a little bit different. They do require a little bit more documentation, but typically it's those standard 3 things: making sure that you have insurance coverage, making sure you have the autism diagnosis, and then potentially a referral if needed.
Okay, so every child needs to have that autism diagnosis
Yes,
in
ma'am.
order to come.
Yes,
And so, like, do you take Step Up for students?
I do. That was going to be
Okay,
my caveat. We do take Step Up
okay,
for students.
okay.
We are a direct pay provider through them. So we've already been kind of vetted. We're in their system. We do have some families that use the scholarship, to either offset some of the cost, that patient responsibility piece of the bill from your insurance, and directly just the Step Up for Students scholarship as well. So we are there.
Awesome. And so is it a full day program for the children?
Yeah. So, what typically happens, we conduct an initial assessment. So once we get all your documents in, once we submit it to insurance, and they say yes, you're good to go to do an assessment, we'll bring the families in. They get to tour the facility, and then we conduct an initial assessment. During this assessment, you are pretty much meeting with the board certified behavior analyst, or the BCBA, that's going to take the case. So that's either myself or one of my other analysts. And this is when we're going to have a parent meeting, an interview, kind of figure out, okay, what are your concerns that you're seeing? What skills do we need to work on? And then from there, we do a skill acquisition assessment, right? So seeing what skills we need to work on, and then we formulate a report, and we kind of prescribe, in a way, a certain amount of hours. For our program, we do not do more than 30 hours a week, especially because our learners are so young. That's a lot. But research has shown for more intensive services, you can get a lot done. You can typically work through a lot in about 6 hours per day. So once we kind of, prescribe how many hours, or recommend how many hours that we see fit, we then kind of come up with a schedule that works best for the family. So some of our families come 9 to 3, some of them come 10 to 4. We have some afternoon kiddos that come after school, so they may come 2 to 5 or 2:30 to 5, just kind of depending on their schedules. But our biggest thing is we like to work with the families. We completely understand that you're letting your babies come to us, right? Even if they're school age, they're still your babies, and we want to make sure that you feel safe. So for some families, in the beginning, we may not start out with the 6-hour day. We may start out with the 3-hour day and say, hey, he adjusted really, really well, or she adjusted really, really well. If you're feeling comfortable, we can work on increasing those hours. But most of our kiddos are here about 6 hours a day, no more than 8 hours. And typically it is Monday through Friday, but we do have some families that have some schedules where it's like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, or Tuesday, Thursday, because we also understand there's other therapies that kind of come into play, right? So you may have speech, and it can be a burden on families to have to go from one therapy appointment to another therapy appointment, and still have to go to school, and still have to go to work. So we really work with our families to ensure that it's a schedule that promotes continuity of care, making sure that they can commit, because it's a commitment. It's a commitment from us to provide those services, but then it's a commitment from families to ensure that you're committed to coming to therapy. But in addition to making sure, that therapy is being done in-house or in the clinic, we also provide family guidance. So everything that we do here at the clinic, we also teach our families, because our goal, again, is to work ourselves out of a job. So we have that caregiver collaboration where every month I meet with all of our families. Hey, what concerns do you have this month? Okay, well, let's address this. Oh, they're not having BMs in the potty. Okay, well, let's work together, to create a plan that is also going to be useful for you at home. And or they're really starting to engage in some self-interest behavior at home. Okay, well, let's schedule a home observation to ensure that we're kind of making sure both settings are being connected and that those skills are transferring over. But to answer your question, it's a day program, typically 9 to 3, 10 to 4, but we are open 8:30 to 5 Monday through Thursday, and then 8 to 3 on Fridays.
Okay. So if they are having some troubles in the home environment, then you guys don't have a problem with going into the home
Yes.
setting, seeing how you can assist with that. Okay, that's awesome.
Yes, ma'am. We absolutely, we do that actually quite a bit. My goal for Missing Piece is to be a trifecta. So if you actually see our logo, a lot of people think the house is just a house, but that house represents every environment, because we want all of our learners to be successful in any environment that they go in. So if we do need to, pull a kid out the home or out the clinic and then do some home services, we look at that if it's what's needed for that family, right? Or if we're transitioning a kid from the clinic to school. Okay, if the school will allow us to come in, if insurance will allow us to come in, then we kind of make those accommodations to ensure that that learner is successful in that environment as well. So our logo is truly that meaning of, continuity of care. That house represents the clinic, it represents the school, it represents the grocery store, it represents the park, because ABA is so much bigger than just the clinic base. It's so much bigger than just home. And that's the one thing I tell my staff a lot is, yes, we're working on some foundational skills, but these skills are so much bigger than what we're doing right now. Think about they're 3 now, they're 4 now, but what happens when they're 13? What happens when they're 20? We want these skills to genuinely carry over so that they can live a productive life.
Yes. And so with that, I know that you said that are trying to work yourselves out of a job. So do you have like a plan for the parents to follow, or like how do you make sure that they are taking accountability and, working on those things that are being addressed at the clinic with the therapist?
Absolutely. I think that's a great question. So for all of our treatment plans, so kind of going back to that process, we do that initial assessment, we write up this report. With that report, typically there are a few different types of goals. So we have goals for our families to work on, and then we have goals specifically for the client or the learner to work on. So every month when we're meeting, I'm ensuring we're talking about some of those goals I put in place. So some of those goals are goals that the families tell us. So like, hey, bedtime routines are very, very difficult for us. Okay, well, that's a goal that we can work on, right? Or, hey, maladaptive behaviors are just really, really tough in the grocery store. That's a goal that we need to work on. Or, I don't know how to communicate with my child. That's a goal we need to work on. So typically during that 6-month period, we are, consistently meeting with our families once a month, sometimes twice a month, just depending on the need. I have a family that I meet with almost every week to ensure whether it's a touch base meeting and or, a phone call or whatever the case may be to ensure that these goals are still being ran. We take a lot of data. So everything that the family's telling us, we're always writing it down. We're putting it into our data management system to kind of see those trends. So if they went to, the grocery store and I didn't overlap with them and we talked through the skills of, okay, well, if he's kind of trying to run away from the buggy, let's put him in the buggy, or let's make sure we're holding his hand and we're kind of practicing those skills. I'll have a follow-up conversation. Hey, the last time you went to the grocery store, what did that look like? Did he elope? Do we need to do another overlap? Things of that nature to ensure that everyone is being consistent. It takes more than just your RBT and your BCBA. It takes the family, to do their part, but it also makes sure that everyone's on the same accord. We actually offer our parent training to any family member within that family. So, a lot of parents will come. We've had grandparents come in. We had caregivers, like babysitters kind of come in because it's not just only on the parents, right? It is a collaborative effort for everyone.
That's amazing. Um, and so do you allow for outside therapies to come in, like speech or OT, or
Yep. So
you
we
do?
have worked with early steps. We've had some outside speech therapists come in. We actually have music therapy that comes to the clinic every Tuesday. And on Tuesdays, it's really great because the kids absolutely love it. And it's a great way for them to practice being in like a school setting. But we do allow outside providers to come in. Typically, they just have to sign a visitor form. And then we have like a non-disclosure agreement because it functions kind of like a medical office, right? So they can't interact with any other clients besides who they're there to see. But it works out really, really well. We just ask that we have that notice in advance so we can let the therapist know. And then we can let our office manager know as well.
Okay. And so what is the capacity at the clinic? How many clients can you take? Are you at capacity? Are you accepting new clients?
Yeah, so we are actually accepting new clients. It's the
Okay.
beginning of the year. So with insurance changes, we have opened up some availability. So at this point, we are accepting new clients. When it comes to capacity, when it comes to specifically clinic-based services, we have the capacity to take on about 5 to 6 more kids. We currently service about 10 kids in the clinic now, and then we have a few learners that are getting services in school. So just really depending upon that insurance, but we're looking to bring on about 5 or 6 more kids at a comfortable level. We did just add on a sensory gym to our location. We started in a small space just to see how Missing Piece goes, and we actually outgrew it in 6 months, which was great. So we are looking potentially for a bigger building to service more families, but we do have the availability to bring on some more kids at this time.
Oh, that is amazing. So do you guys do any type of like outings with the kids, any like field trips, or do you prefer to like bring those field trips to the clinic?
Yeah, so that's so funny you mentioned that. The team actually just asked me, like, Marlee, can we do a field trip? We typically bring people to the clinic
Okay.
just because there are a wide variety of behaviors
Mhm.
that we are, trying to reduce, right? So we have some clients that will try to run away, right? So elopements and things of that nature. So just to keep everyone safe, we do prefer activities to come to us. However, in the future, as we start to get older clients, I would love to start to do, field trips and outings and things of that nature. I do think a big uh, part of the reason I'm a little hesitant is because sometimes our insurance companies does not fund that, right? So it would kind of be more of a private pay
Yeah.
situation, which I think is still important, right?
Mhm.
To have those outings, to know how to navigate a library, to know what to do when it's, you're taking turns at Chuck E. Cheese. So that is something we are exploring in the future. But right
Yeah.
now we have like the fire trucks came out to us because our parking lot is kind of like a U shape and it's off the road. So we have a lot of space to kind of have a petting zoo and all these things kind of come to us. So we kind of explore that route right now.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's yeah, a good thing. I could understand, why that would be safer to keep,
Hmm.
everybody in one
Absolutely.
enclosed area and have things that way. So that's great that the kids get to still experience, activities and things like that. Um, so if anyone is interested in services, how would they go about, you know, trying to get started with services?
Absolutely. So on our website, which is www.missingpiecebehavior.com, there is a contact us form. Essentially, you click it. It asks some very basic information. Your child's name, your first name, your address, and your insurance. That kind of sends our team a message to let us know that you're interested in services, and then we send you a kind of informational message back, just stating what we need, what we do, and then that kind of puts you on our queue. We don't technically have a waiting list, we have a queue. So this queue is essentially, based off of your insurance. So if it's an insurance that we accept, we get a lot of Sunshine calls. Unfortunately, we are not in network with Sunshine. We've tried many, 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 many times. So I'm hoping they're reopening their portal soon to allow us to accept Medicaid. That is my biggest wish for 2026 is that we are able to accept Sunshine Health because it's absolutely needed. And insurance just has been kind of opening and closing their panels for new providers. But once you submit that form, we send you an email kind of telling you all the information that you need. You can submit, the CDE or that diagnostic report, the referral, your front and back of your insurance card, and then that kind of starts the process. From there, once we get all that information, we submit it to our authorization team, and then they do a verification of benefits, just letting if you're going to have patient responsibility, what that's going to look like. If you're going to have a copay on a daily basis, what's that going to look like? And you have all your information there. And then we'll be good to go to kind of get the ball rolling for starting services.
And so what would you say that turnaround time looks like? I know it can vary based on, how quickly some families might get information back to you all, but
Absolutely.
what would you say like the overall turnaround time is from them submitting the inquiry to being able to start services?
Yeah. So I would say it typically takes about a month. And the reason I say a month from the first initial contact, typically we get all that information. And as soon as we get it and parents are like, yes, I want services, they're okay with their verification of benefits, we have to submit it to the insurance company. That can take about a week for them to get back to us to say, hey, yes, you're good to go. You can start this initial assessment. Once we get the code to do the initial assessment, we typically schedule within 2 to 3 days of receiving that code to have that initial meeting. And then the write-up takes about a week. So we're kind of already at 2 weeks there, right? Once we get that write-up and we can meet with the families to go over it, make sure they're in agreement and sign it, we submit it back to insurance. And that takes about another week, week and a half. So now we're right about 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks. And then once we get the all good to start services, we try to get everyone scheduled within a week of receiving that initial, like, yes, you can start services. So that puts us at about 4 weeks. So it's about a 4-week turnaround. I would say if you have a diagnostic report, that is, I would say, the biggest barrier. We get a lot of phone calls, and not that ABA is specifically for children with autism spectrum. It's just one of the leading therapies. Insurance has made it a little bit difficult to say, okay, yes, you may have behavioral challenges, but you're not meeting the criteria for us to want to pay for it. So we do get some families that will call and say, hey, well, he's having behavioral issues. And we still can service them. It may just be out of a private pay model, which that goes a little bit quicker because we don't have to wait for the insurance approval. But it just ultimately kind of depends on what way, which way you want to kind of essentially pay for services or explore the services there.
And do you run into a lot of families that they inquire about services, but they're not aware of, like, what is a diagnostic evaluation? What is these other assessments that I need to have? Do you run into that a lot?
Yes, ma'am, we do. So typically, my office manager, she'll always say, Marlee, I got a call today. And I'm like, oh, that's so great. And then she's like, but they didn't have a diagnosis. And I'm like, okay. So typically when a family calls our office and they do not have a diagnosis or a diagnostic report, we send them a list of providers in the area that provides that service. So typically they're like, hey, we don't have that. And we're like, okay, no worries. We send that information. And then now they have a list of providers to choose from all over Jacksonville that typically can, do a comprehensive diagnostic evaluation. The flip side, though, everyone has a wait list. So it might be two months, it might be 6 months, it might be a year before they can actually get that diagnosis. And that has been truly one of our biggest barriers, right? So making sure that the other side of the spectrum, to say, is able to get the diagnosis that they need. That is definitely a big barrier for us and for families, right? Even finding a diagnosing physician because the wait lists have been so long.
Yeah. And so I think that is one thing too that's really important for the families to be able to have that knowledge and education again, like we were talking about, because a lot of families are, unaware, or they're just beginning, especially when they're at such a young age. They don't know all of the things that are required to be able to receive, a lot of services. So
Absolutely.
being able to expose them to that type of information, I think that's really critical and important. So I'm glad that you guys are able to provide them, with the list of providers and explain things a little bit more for those families that don't have that knowledge of what is required and what, what that means exactly. If families want to check out any other, I don't know if you like post photos or social media, Do you have a social media page?
Yeah, we do have a social media page. We are currently on Instagram and Facebook. You can look up Missing Piece Behavioral. We post a variety of different things on our socials. Typically, it is our therapist and client engagement that with a HIPAA compliant standard, so you won't see any of our clients' faces. We post accomplishments of our staff. I think that is very important. We really value our staff here. So while it is important to cater to families and make sure that they're getting the best services, I am a firm believer you have to also cater to your staff, because the worst thing that can happen is you start a family, you start them with a therapist, and then that therapist quits. Right. And then this family kind of feels like, okay, well, what's going on? I'm getting a new therapist every 3 days. So with that, we like to share a lot of our staff's accomplishments and how they've been a big part of our missing piece too, because it's a journey for everyone. Just like I said before, it's a commitment for our families. It's a commitment for our staff. So you'll get to meet some of our staff. We do a lot of different staff outings. We do activities for the families and the kids as well. So we have like parents night out. So every quarter we do a Friday night where the staff that would like to work and get some extra hours, the families can drop off their kids, have a date night, or kind of go and do something different. And they're used to, the people that they see on a daily basis. We also have had like trunk or treats in the past, where we had a huge carnival right here at the clinic and was able to kind of have a safe space for our learners to practice trick-or-treating and things of that nature. We've done community resources events. We've done backpack drives. We've given informationals, a lot of different things for the community, because ultimately when I created Missing Piece, I knew I wanted it to be somewhere where I grew up. And as a Jacksonville native and a native of the west side of Jacksonville, I realized that there was not a provider on the west side of Jacksonville. You go on the south side, there's one on every corner. You go in Orange Park, there's one on every corner. You go in Fleming Island, there's one. Not every corner, but there's one there, right? But on the west side of Jacksonville, there are no ABA providers. They're starting to pop up a little bit more now. But as far as like a clinic, there is not a clinic on the west side of Jacksonville. And it just happened to be, 2 streets over from where I grew up. So definitely want to pour back into the community.
That's so great. I thank you so much for, just caring about this population of children and families. I think it's so important that we have providers like yourself that are, pouring their all into this community, because the services are so needed.
Absolutely.
The support is so needed for
Absolutely.
so many of the families and the children, and being able to provide them with a continuity of care and consistency, that is something that we definitely need in this type of, population. So I'm so thankful to be able to talk with you about your business and the services you provide, and, all the things that you are doing with and for the community is so amazing. I'm sure that Sunshine Portal will open up for you so that you're able to take those sunshine clients, because I know that is definitely a major need. So I am going to be hoping and praying that comes for you this year in 2020.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, so I just want to thank you again for coming on.
Absolutely.
If you all have questions, if you're interested in services, you want to check out the social media, please make sure that you visit Missing Piece Behavioral Solutions on their website or their social media. And thank you so much again, Marlee,
You're so welcome.
Out to come on and share your business with us all. Another resource that we greatly need in the community. And with that being said, thank you all for tuning in to another episode of Two Moms and Some Labels. Until next time, bye.
Bye.